This may sound strange, but today we're going to be talking about taking breaks from writing. Yes, that's what we, the Christian indie writers, are talking about today. So stay tuned.
Hi, and welcome to the Christian Indie Writers Podcast, where we inform, encourage, and support Christian indie writers on their journey to publication. I'm Christina Catane, and I write Christian fantasy.
I'm Jennifer Carltong, and I write historical Christian romance.
I'm Jamie Hirschberger. I write short fiction under the pen name J.R. Nichols.
So thanks, everyone, for tuning in. All of our chatters, we love you. All of our listeners on podcasts everywhere, we love you too. All of our followers on Facebook that are in our little group, we love everybody. And if you want more people to love, for us to love, you should share and comment and like and hit all the buttons. So we start each episode with What's Up. It's a little segment where we just go around and we say what's up in our writing life and our personal life. So I am going to start with Jamie this morning.
All right. Well, coming from my little corner of the world is another show and tell installment.
Oh, fun.
I
Because
love show and tell with Jamie.
I was watching some videos of somebody who grew up in the Metro Detroit area, and his sister went home and came back and brought him a care package of Detroit sort of favorites.
And for those who don't know, Jamie grew up in Metro Detroit.
Yes.
Not just Michigan, but Metro Detroit.
Yes. And so when I was telling a friend about that, I mentioned that he was reviewing Better Made potato chips and Faygo sodas and things like that. And anyway, enough about that person. For me personally, I went to go and leave for work the other day, and I found delivered to my doorstep Better Made potato sticks. And they're so good.
Somebody loves you.
I'm saying.
Nice.
So I just wanted to shout out, first of all, to Better Made potato chips. And second of all, to my friend Kim. I will out her. Thank you, Kim, for sending me the potato sticks. And I just kind of want to know, for the people who did not grow up in Metro Detroit, or if you girls just want to shout out some of your local favorites, what would you miss if you moved away from your hometown? Like for me, getting some of those Better Made hot chips or barbecue flavored chips. Oh man, it's worth the trip home. You know, how much is a flight? So what do y'all think?
Catherine says no Verner's. Verner's is actually spreads. It's not just Michigan anymore, but yeah.
Yeah, you can get it here because I think so many people have moved here from Michigan. And in fact, there is a hot dog factory, not Kowalski, but Kogel, that has a truck run down here on occasion so that the fellow Michiganders can purchase from them. Yeah. So yes, I can get Verner's here.
So for me, I did move away. I lived in Boston for 6 years. And when I was there, I missed Halo Burger in the worst way. So Halo Burger is specific to the Flint area. So it's not only specific to Michigan, but it's the Flint area. And I was so whenever as soon as I would land in Michigan, I would ask, can we go to Halo Burger? All of a sudden my body would start craving it. And we didn't have one in my hometown, but where we were near the airport, there was one. But I got to say, ladies, Halo Burger has gone downhill. It got bought out by a big corporation, and now I don't really even care about it anymore. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, that happens.
Well, I grew up in Anchorage, Alaska. And we, on the weekends, on Saturdays in the summer, in downtown Anchorage, they have what's called Saturday Market. And it's kind of like if you go to a fair in Frankenmuth or whatever. And so they have a bunch of tents, and then there's a lot of indigenous people selling their artwork and their, stuff they've made out of animal furs or ivory or carved from stone or wood or a lot of stuff. It's kind of like an artsy, kind of folksy little thing to go to. And we used to go down there, and there's a guy with a hot dog cart. But he did not sell hot dogs. He sold reindeer sausages.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, don't let my kids hear that.
And
not the reindeer.
They are the best thing. And sometimes at Christmas time, I order reindeer sausages from Alaska, and we sing a little song about What has it go? I don't know. Something about Rudolph on a bun tasting so good. So.
Oh no.
But yeah, reindeer sausage. You can get it on your pizza in Anchorage. If you order pizza from a pizza place, you can get reindeer sausage on your pizza.
We'll have to order it sometime, and we'll have to have it. If we ever have a writing retreat, which is what we want to do, that one is the next big thing we would like to do. We need to have some reindeer sausage there.
Well, we might have to up the price because the shipping is more expensive
than the actual
than
sausage.
the reindeer sausage. Maybe I can have my mom send me some. That might be cheaper.
Yeah, there you go. Piper says Dunkin' and Fluff. Now, I will say that Dunkin' Donuts is everywhere, or at least it was when I lived there. It was everywhere in Massachusetts, and I love Dunkin' coffee. I'm kind of a coffee snob. Like, I like certain, like, kind of small coffee shop crafted, like, coffees, but I do love Dunkin' coffee. But I don't know what the Fluff is, so you have to be a little more specific. I actually just Googled it. I don't know what Fluff is, so interesting.
So I'll go next with my what's up. I have been so busy this week. I feel like from the moment we signed off last Friday from this podcast until now, I have just been going with appointments and different things going on, and just a lot of stuff. And yet I really got some writing done this week. And on what day was it? Let me look. I'm looking at my calendar over here. Wednesday, I actually wrote 3,200 words in one day, which is kind of a record for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm pretty happy with how, and this week is this next week is looking to be just as busy. So, but hopefully I'll still be getting writing done. I'm hoping to get this book done by the end of this month.
Wow, that'd be huge.
That is awesome.
What about you, Jen? What's up with you?
Well, first of all, Piper says that it's marshmallow fluff. So do you mean you put marshmallow fluff in the coffee? Because that sounds genius. Like, I never even thought about that. One of the popular coffees at our church, I run the cafe there, is the toasted marshmallow, which we put a flavoring in it. And then I toast a marshmallow and put on top. But just to put the cream in there sounds delicious. I never even thought about that. All right. So for me, I got to say this morning, ladies, I'm double fisted. You guys know I drink. Sorry, I keep hitting things. I drink, and there's nothing in this. I say double fisted. It's just coffee, but I drink iced coffee year round. But I'm so cold today, and I don't know why. That I like actually brought a sweatshirt down that I was gonna put on, but I was afraid I'd get overheated. So instead, I plugged in a heating pad that I'm sitting on my back, and then I went and got hot coffee. And yeah, I don't know why I'm so cold. I'm like, used to Michigan weather, but today it just feels so like bitter cold to me. We had an ice storm last night that kind of kept everyone indoors. So I don't know. Maybe that's it.
Yeah, my granddaughter got school canceled, so she's coming over early today.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Aww.
Okay. So if there's no other what's ups in the chat, we can transition into today's topic, which is taking a break from our writing. And so let's talk about why in the world would we want to do that?
Right, because we are the ladies that always say, "Get your butt in the chair." Right? We've that's kind of been one of our mantras from day one. But there are some reasons why you would want to, right?
Yeah.
Well, the first one, what we talked about, was burnout. Like sometimes you just need to because you're burning yourself out. And if I know for myself personally, if I feel the burnout, the writing is just so subpar at that point. And then I feel that I'm not putting out a good product. And then that's even more frustrating. And then the burnout becomes even worse for me. What about you ladies?
Yeah, if I follow all the writing advice out there from these productivity people, I get burnt out really fast. And then the writing just won't come. I just get completely frozen. But when I follow my process, which is completely opposite of all that advice out there, it seems like, it goes really well. So I guess I'm just a contrary kind of person. I don't know.
But I think that's a really good point to make about the fact that, like, so when we first started, and for, we have evolved over the years as writers, as people. We've learned more about our Clifton strengths. We've learned what works for us and what doesn't. And at the beginning, we were all trying to fit into the same mold, right? and that doesn't fit everybody, right? So that
Yeah.
trying to fit into a mold that you don't fit into can cause, I think, can be a major cause of burnout.
And I remember you giving me feedback one time about, I think it was my first book, that you felt like parts of it were written by somebody else.
Mm,
And those were the times I was trying to force myself to fit into that box
mm,
of you have to write, and feeling like if I was daydreaming that I was procrastinating and I was doing something wrong.
mm-hmm.
Now I understand that I can't write without the daydreaming. The
Right.
daydreaming has to be first so that I can write.
And that this is not what the topic of the show is, but that is a testament to having a close knit writing group that of people that you can trust. Because first of all, most people wouldn't tell you something like that, right? If they
Right.
read your stuff, they're worried about offending you, and also you could have been offended by that, and maybe you were actually. Who knows, right? But
It
it's so
stung
important.
for a minute.
Yeah. But it's so important to have people around you that will tell you those kind of things because you may not have been able to see that yourself, right?
Right.
But better writing came out of that
Right.
because I didn't have anything to gain by saying that, right? And I'm sure I don't remember how I felt, but I'm sure it was scary to like give that kind of feedback, sometimes, but
Yeah, but like I said, like the whole point is, if we try to force ourselves to write when we're not ready, or if there's something like, if you have any of these other reasons and you try to force yourself to write, you could end up in burnout.
mhm, agreed.
So what are some of the other, I know, um, Jamie, you've had some you've been down on the weather this week, so you want to talk about illness?
Yeah, for sure. I needed all the rest I could get this week, and that meant that I had to sacrifice my daily writing time, and I didn't like it because there was a little voice trying to should me inside my head. You should be writing, you should be. But there's like some common sense about good self-care and taking care of your body that you also have to pay attention to. Um, and you have to make sure that you're doing what's good for your health, as well as what's good for your writing career.
Mhm.
Right. And sometimes if you're sick, the writing, the muse, I guess, if you want to call it that, just isn't as clear as when you're not sick. And so you could do a lot of writing while you are sick and end up throwing it out anyway.
Right. And then you just waste that time you could have been resting.
Right.
Yeah. And there's more than just physical illness too. And I want to kind of backtrack a bit about and talk about family crisis. So, family crisis, I think on the surface, you think, okay, once you get through this crisis, then you get back to writing, which I've been able to do in some crises. But losing my mom and so many other loved ones in the past several years, like my mental illness, my ability to produce like creatively is like at an all-time low because I am still in mourning,
Right.
and that's okay. It is okay to be able to step away from your writing because you just need to be able to heal, and that's
Right.
okay, and we need to be able to give ourselves forgiveness for that too.
In your case, the family crisis led to mourning. In other
Mhm.
cases, family crisis may lead to extreme stress.
Mhm.
And either way, you need to take care of yourself before you can do the writing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. And so sometimes you just can't write.
Just for whatever reason, you may not be
Right.
able to put a finger on it. Right.
You're stuck. You can't figure out why. And I think it's really important during those times to give yourself grace, first of all,
Mhm.
um, and not beat up on yourself, because sometimes our subconscious mind knows that there's something going on that we don't know about.
Mhm.
So, like for me, whenever I get stuck in my writing, I have learned that the first thing I need to do is go back and look at what I've already done,
Mhm.
because a lot of times it's there's something wrong and I just can't see it, but my brain knows that there is.
Mhm.
But sometimes we just need a break.
Agreed. Where Piper said, Piper says, she says, I've been taking a break from writing because there was just too much on my plate recently. Agreed. I feel like that way too. I also think, and so I think that's good that you knew that and that you just took a break because you just needed to because you had so much going on. Sometimes I find myself filling my plate though in order to not write. Do you ladies ever find yourself doing that, or is that just a Jen thing?
I wouldn't think that that's an unusual experience. I mean, there's the very famous kind of mindset of like, oh, suddenly my house is cleaner than it's ever been before. And I have this deadline for my writing, looming in the
Right.
future. And I don't think that that's atypical. I think what's important when you find yourself in these places is that you think back on the things that we were just talking about and see if any of them apply to you that you just don't realize. So, for example, have you been trying to follow the Mr. X productivity,
Mm-hmm.
program? Have you been trying to shoehorn yourself into a be like someone else situation and it's just not authentic to you and you are therefore resisting it because it isn't authentic to you? These are things that you can give yourself permission to examine in these times that you're avoiding the writing to try to figure out what's going on. Because Jen, maybe you fill your plate to avoid the writing. You had self-admitted maybe because you didn't want to deal with what come up about your mom in the process,
See, right. So like unlike Piper, who has legitimate like things were happening in her life. Like she had things, she announced some things this week, like that, some good things, but she was busy doing those things. With me, like it has just been very hard for me to open up that book because the character is my mom in so many ways. And it just opens up the because I have to function. I can't stay in bed all day and cry, right? I have to function. And so opening up the book sometimes makes me want to just crawl into bed and cry, and so I'm avoiding, in a lot of ways I avoid it. And then I fill my plate with other things in order to do that. So, but like Jamie pointed out, doesn't mean that it's wrong that I'm taking a break from writing. It just means it gives me an opportunity to investigate, like, why am I taking a break from writing? I love to write. I love my career. I love these characters. So why am I taking a break? Right. And I know now that it's because I'm still mourning the loss of my mother, but it could be a myriad of other things. And the more, like one of the things that we said in our meeting, the more you resist, the worse that it can make you feel. And then the worse you feel, the less you want to write. And it becomes this terrible cycle that you don't want to be caught in because you're not going to get any writing anyway. So maybe it's better to just walk away for a little bit from your writing.
Mm-hmm. Like give yourself permission to be there and feel the feelings, because the most beautiful the analogy was about suffering in general, but this very much works for anything that you're trying to sort of change about yourself. If you imagine a couple of step ladders and then a broom across and a bucket of water hanging from a rope in the middle, mm-hmm. and you're standing there, if you push that bucket, it's going to come swinging back at you. And the harder you push it away, the harder it's going to come swinging back at you. And so instead of just accepting the fact that you have this going on, trying to resist it, fix it, push it away might possibly make things a whole lot worse for you. So it's possible that if you just endure this season, the season will change and then you will get into a more productive time. So this is where our comment of having grace for yourself comes in.
Right. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to add that if you're like me and you have a very small plate, sometimes life fills up your plate and you have to make a choice between what is more important. And like for me right now, my health, I got a lot of health stuff going on. If I don't take care of that, then eventually I wouldn't be able to write anyway. And so I have to make it a priority.
Right. Teresa says, I haven't been able to bring myself to write for several weeks now, and I can't put my finger on why. I think that you are where I was not that long ago, Teresa. I couldn't see it. And we had an episode with Becca, and she was the one that kind of pointed out to me, I think that made me see that like everything was directly related to the loss of my mother. So my suggestion would be to, if you don't have any writing friends like that you can sit and have coffee with, then come to our Facebook group and sit and have coffee with some friends there. Sit and have coffee with a friend who knows you well that isn't a writer, and just tell them what your struggle is. And the people, I think it's going to be easier with people who know you better. It might be good to get some advice from other writers, but I think that's going to be easier from people who know you better, that maybe can see what we can't see. Tell them what you're struggling with. Tell them what you don't know what's going on, and just have an honest conversation with somebody that can be honest with you. I mean, I have friends, but I have a small number of friends that will be honest with me, if you know what I mean. And those are the ones I would seek out for this, because it could be something you just don't see. And then once you discover it, then you can find grace for yourself and find a way of circumventing it. I'm still working on that. This is kind of why, like, I feel kind of disingenuous having this episode, because I'm still struggling with it. But I think in another way that it's good, because it's not like I've mastered this. I'm still in the process of it. But I'll get there because I've gotten there before. I know I can cross the finish line with this book. I know I'm almost there. And I know that when I do, then there'll be all of you celebrating with me. So.
And I think it'll be better for it because you took the time.
Agreed.
Well, and if you're brand new to this podcast, or if you've just never really been introduced to anything other than stop making excuses and put your butt in the chair, you can,
which we do believe in that too. Sorry, go ahead.
We'll get to that in our own episode outline here and stuff. Sorry to kind of jump ahead, but at the end of the day, this ideal of shoulding yourself is something that you should really explore, and questioning the premise. I mean, if you're an independent author, what is this deadline that you have? Are you in a habit of dishonoring commitments to yourself? Are you just holding yourself to some standard? Where does the standard come from? These are things that you need to also consider if you're brand new to the idea of not just no excuses, get to work kind of thinking.
All right. So let's talk about what we should do instead if we decide that we need to take a break from writing.
Well, I think that the decision itself can probably be a helpful tool of diagnosing what's going on. So, for example, all right, let me fill the time that I usually would fill with writing. Well, wait a minute. What do you mean? Maybe you don't have a scheduled writing time. And this is something that you can journal about, possibly, and write down what you discover just in the process of giving yourself the permission to fill that time in other ways.
Yeah.
I think resting is fine. Just resting. Take a nap, sister.
Yeah.
Take a nap. Like, I know, like, for me, taking a nap is hard because I feel like I should be doing something else. But yesterday I took a nap, and sometimes it doesn't feel great, but yesterday I felt really good. Like, I got up and it was like, I felt like I was behind I was behind the time and in the rest of the day, but it didn't matter. I felt more rested, and sometimes you just need that. I know, Tina, sometimes you just need to take a break just so you can daydream.
Yeah. And a lot of times if I'm stuck, and I look at my, like, let's say I want to write a certain scene, and I look at like what I want. I'll have notes like what I want in the scene, but I'm stuck with the writing. While I'm napping, my brain, because I have all these thinking strengths, will solve the problem while I'm asleep. And I'll wake up and the answer will be there. It's the most bizarre thing.
I've heard you're not alone in that. I've heard of, I can't remember if it was Edison or who, but they would have a couch in their office for the specific purpose of going to rest when things were getting a little bit stuck. But it's interesting. Piper says she's been reading. Very good, Piper. That was on our list.
And I want to speak to that too. Like, I find that when I read in my genre, myself personally, I need to read in my genre if I'm trying to get back into writing. When I read really good writing in my genre, it inspires me to be a better writer. And when I read really bad writing in my genre, it inspires me to be a better writer. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I have to read in my genre. That really does help me. If I'm taking a break from writing because I want to take a break from writing, I can read anything. But if I'm trying to get back into writing and find my sweet spot, right, then I need to read in my genre. But yeah, it helps me a ton to read.
I think that's a really great point you make, Jennifer. I think it's important to define the purpose of the break. You know, if you're really taking a break to take a break, don't be shooting all over yourself during your break. Well, I'm doing this because I should be writing, but instead I'm doing something else. No, a break is a break, and give yourself time to just have a break.
Especially if you're taking a break because of burnout or stress, then the rest thing is really important.
Yeah.
I just witnessed a intense fellowship between friends of mine, a married couple that are getting ready to go on vacation. And she's like, he's not doing work while he's gone. So don't ask him, don't message him, because he also works. He does like our finances for the church, but he has a whole nother job that he's very busy with. And he's like, I'll have my phone if you need something. She's like, no. And then they went back and forth about like the best vacation they ever had. His phone got lost or something, and so he couldn't, and he agreed, like, he goes, that was the best vacation ever. And then she's like, he's not taking his phone. Like they had this intense fellowship about this. And so all I'm saying is, like, if you do know your point is to rest, then just let yourself rest and own it. It's okay to just rest. So Piper says, I do think if you can't write and don't know why and can't figure it out with friends, considering if it's actually depression is a valid approach. Agreed. Absolutely agree. Liz Henderson says, or take a break to avoid burnout. Agreed. Absolutely agree with all of that.
Wow, very good advice.
Yep.
Yeah. It's better to take a break before you hit burnout.
Yeah, for sure.
Than to take a break because you're burnt out.
Right.
Yes.
Definitely. So let's say we've taken our break for whatever reason and we've done our things. How do we know when it's time to go back to the writing?
When your characters won't let you stay away any longer.
Yeah.
Right. Like sometimes that happens to me. Like, so I'm kind of taking a break now, but I'm trying to get back into it. But the funny thing is I have all these other stories that also are not letting me take a break. And when we do sprinting, they show up because they're like, hello, I'm still over here waiting for you to write my story. So that helps too. So I think that the sprinting has helped me to stay at least connected a little bit. And that is helping me to, and I think that if I can just get this book done, edited, and like, it feels like this giant mountain. I have to do the editing, but after that, there's the cover and all the stuff to get it actually published. I think if I can just get over this mountain, I'll be back closer to myself again. Again, like, because this character is so much like a mom, I can get past this. But it's feeling overwhelming right now. So, so for me, I know that like my characters are making me come back.
I have this thing on my wall, and it's the decision tree. Because I have intellection, and part of that intellection, that daydreaming and thinking, you can get stuck in a loop where you just keep thinking about the same thing over and over again, and then you miss the action point. So the first question on there is, can you see what's next? Like, can you see the scene that you want to write or the story that you want to write? And if you can see it, then maybe it's time to write it.
Right. And we said in our outline too, this is especially hard if you have quit writing involuntarily, quote unquote, or like for a reason that like was out of your control. And we even put in here, Teresa, without knowing that you're going to say that, if you still haven't put your finger on the why, it makes it that much harder to come back. And we know that. But our notes say, like, remind us that have faith that you will be back. Just have faith that you're going to.
Well, go Jen.
I was gonna say, or have faith that you're not going to come back, because isn't this all in God's hands anyway? What if it's not God's intent for me to finish this book for some reason? I mean, I've prayed about that. That is a possibility. Maybe God doesn't intend for me to put this fourth book out. I can't imagine why, but it's a possibility. And so you have to prayerfully consider whatever decision it is that God has for you in your career.
It's really funny because I was the one that added that to the outline, because it is true that it's all in God's hands anyway. And you can craft a masterful story and put a beautiful cover and a wonderful blurb on it, and it doesn't mean it's going to be the next runaway bestseller.
Right.
It's all it's providence, right? It's the will of God or whatever. But what's interesting too is if you really wrap your mind around, like, how do you feel about the ideal that you'll never publish? Like I was mentoring a young lady to the equivalent of an Eagle Scout and American Heritage Girls. It's called the Stars and Stripes Award.
Mm-hmm.
And she came to me and she was really wrestling with just this obligation that she had. And I said, well, why don't you just quit? Why don't you just quit? There's no reason for you to get this award. You know, like, I mean, you don't have to do it.
Right.
And oh my goodness, did that light a fire under her like never before. And it's only just occurring to me in this moment that it's possible. There's one way for you to possibly reignite that flame is to consider what would happen if you just decided to quit, or maybe decide to quit. And then maybe deciding to quit will be the thing that will bring you back to it. Like, give yourself permission to really explore all of these ideas.
Mm-hmm.
I like what Catherine said up here. It says, I know it's time to go back to the writing, but I'm excited about it instead of dreading it.
Oh, that's good. It's a very good tell.
Yeah.
Teresa says, oh, I'm definitely holding on to that this time. In the past, I'd get into a big mind trap where I convince myself I'm not good enough, and that's why I've lost steam, but I'm not falling for those lies. Good for you, Teresa.
Right.
Good for you.
And because, you know, some of the most famous writers out there in the book world all have these issues sometimes. And some of them are excellent writers. No one would ever say it's because they're not good enough.
Right.
So don't say that to yourself, and just continue to have grace. Have grace for yourself, because it'll come when it comes.
Absolutely agree.
And it doesn't have to look like it did before.
Good point.
Very good point. Yeah, if maybe you're someone like me and you have this time 10 to 12 set aside for writing, and maybe that's the part that's not working for you, and maybe you realize this during your break and you feel like, oh, but that's what I always did, and then I'm changing it. So again, you're an independent author. You make these decisions for yourself. You don't have to be like Jamie or like Jen or like Tina or like anybody else. If it doesn't look like it looked before, but you're getting the results that you want, hooray.
I had to do that very thing where, you know, I was coming to office hours every day and it wasn't working. But I fought it for a while because I liked hanging out with my friends. And I also kind of felt guilty that I was deserting them. So there was this part of me that fought it. And then finally, I just had to do what I had to do for my writing career. And I had to bow out. And it was sad, but it did have its rewards, because my productivity has been much better since I did that.
That's awesome.
So, and you know, you might come back, change your schedules, change your genre, change what your focus is. Maybe you were focused on having a career before, and now it's going to be a hobby, or vice versa. So, just I believe that God is going to get us through it, no matter what it is.
I agree.
All right. Do we have any other comments we need to talk about before we transition? I don't think so. Okay. Well, then it's time for Feeding of the Backs.
Hooray.
Yay.
This is where we give feedback to some pieces that we wrote just before the podcast. We set a timer for 15 minutes. We were each given the same prompt, and we wrote. And so we only give positive feedback because there's no time to plan with the writing, and there's no time to edit it or revise it or polish it up. So only positive feedback. And so we're going to start today with Jamie again and have her tell us what the prompt was and what she wrote.
Well, today's prompt was a theme, and that theme was love. And here's my sprint. I get unreasonably angry when people discuss love in my presence. They never know it, though, unless they happen to notice that I jab at the dirt on the floor a bit harder with the broom, or recognize that I've found something else to do during the discussion, though I try my best not to leap up from the table under the pretext of grabbing snacks or making lemonade. I'm careful to ease out of my seat and let the person currently talking moon on about their situation, keeping my bitter inventory of wrongs to myself as I sweep or slice or peel. I know ain't nobody but me who knows when I've been preparing these sorts. I know ain't nobody but me knows when I've been preparing in these sorts of foul moods. But even if it's only my imagination, I swear the lemons are just a bit more bitter in the drinks I produce, and the gravy always tastes burnt to my palate, even if everyone clamors for more, takes heaping second helpings. Maybe it's my own guilt I'm trying hard to swallow around the lump that forms in my throat whenever I'm privy to such discussions. It's a large one, that lump, the kind you only dislodge with a good cry, the kind of cry that leaves you looking not suitable for company and therefore has to wait till the next time you're out gathering eggs. Chickens never judge, after all, and even the old farm dog is decent enough to give you the space you need in those times. So I wasn't ready to be assaulted the way I was last Sunday, although the assault was really just a gently revealed heart-shaped card slipped from a backpack of my youngest grandbaby. "Look, Grandma," he said, "it's a love card." A love card. It was the sweetest way to talk about a piece of mass-produced cardstock I'd ever heard, because of course everything is 1,000 times sweeter when murmured through the pudgy lips of that little angel baby. "Well, will you look at that?" I said, reaching for this proffered item as if it were medicine I was loath to take but knew was well intended. I smiled at the childish "I like you lots" type phrase that was printed on the front and flipped it over, expecting to see a child's hand having scrawled a barely discernible name on the back. I frowned. "It isn't signed," I said, then forced a smile. "Do you have a secret admirer?" "No, Granny," the angel said, continuing to empty the contents of his backpack, a crumpled baggie of crushed fish-shaped crackers, a yo-yo with a dirty string, a brown apple with a few bites missing, and a whole mess of papers onto my kitchen table. "That's the one I saved to give to you." I had to turn away pretty quick to stop him possibly seeing my tears. I snapped the valentine to the fridge with a magnet and managed to mutter around that cursed lump in my throat, "Now, isn't that just fine?"
Oh, this is such a great story, Jamie. Great shattering moment. I was going to, my notes, I was going to ask you if this was the same character that we had met earlier that was like outside her house and this kind of sleazy guy showed up and was talking to her dad. But then you said grandbaby. And I was just like, oh, it's a totally different character, but like it has the same kind of feel of like, I instantly love her and want to like give her a hug and understand her pain. And yeah, just very well done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't stop wondering if chickens really are non-judgmental.
I disagree. Mine judge all the time. They judge me all the time. And the vision, like the descriptive words you use too, like through the pudgy lips of this angel baby,
Yeah.
and like just
And
awesome.
I don't know where you meant this to be set, but I kind of see like Appalachian Mountains in the past. Like when, I don't know, it's just has that feel to me.
Yeah, the character who has the little sister named Sissy.
Yes.
I would imagine this would be her later.
Oh, so then that's just kind of like
older.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I really like it.
I love that. That would be such a great novel to go through her whole life, right? And to have snippets of, that'd be so great. Gigi says, "Oh, Jamie, there is so much in this story. I love your characters and story."
Thank you.
Teresa says, "Love the snapshot of a moment in time." Agreed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really like the historic feel to it. I love that kind of stuff.
And then there's a moment in time. It's a moment in time, but yet it's a complete story in itself too. So
yeah,
we learn so much.
Yeah, and I really want to know who did what to this poor old woman that she feels like that.
Yeah, it's interesting because these are the kind of sprints that really help with the story, I feel like, because I don't think that whatever I end up writing about her, because I do feel like there will be a book, but I don't think that it will get all the way to where she's 80. Like, I don't know for sure or however old, but I feel like, well, if I'm her and endured all this kind of stuff, and like, where would she be and who would she be? So it was a really good exercise for me and just kind of character development. I really enjoyed writing it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Nice. Okay.
All right, Tina, let's hear yours.
Go next. And I didn't there's no, I don't know how to say this. Like, I just kept thinking about that verse that says, "Greater love has no one than this." That they lay down their life for their friends. So that's kind of where mine came from.
Okay, awesome.
There was something peaceful about the way the sun shone through the leaves, leaving dappled shadows on the ground. Peter tried to connect with that sense of peace to calm his racing heart. He didn't know who it was chasing them, but he knew they were doing it on behalf of Dracon Genetics. We have to keep moving. Peter gave Melissa an apologetic look. She rose from where she'd spent several minutes resting against a tree. She nodded, picked up the baby, and tucked him into the long strip of cloth she'd wrapped around her body in order to wear him. Soon they were traveling along the path toward the Whitewater Gorge once more. Peter looked over his shoulder every few minutes, terrified that they'd see their pursuers, but more afraid not to look and be caught unaware. Looking behind, he almost ran into Melissa's back. They'd made it to the gorge. It had been much closer than he thought. There was no time for relief. They had to make it across the bridge into the ranger station before the Tracon men caught up to them. A horse whinnied. Peter spun. They were coming, 6 men, 2 on horseback, dressed in black with masks covering their faces. Run, I'll catch up with you. Melissa hesitated only a moment, giving Peter a pleading look. I'll follow when I can. Protect our son. That's the most important thing. Melissa ran then, reaching the other side quickly, though it felt ages too long. Peter heard the shouts of the men. He pulled the hatchet from his belt and in 4 swift swings cut the ropes holding the bridge. It seemed to fall in slow motion, swinging toward the opposite wall of the gorge, smashing against it and breaking into pieces. No! Peter heard Melissa somewhere in the back of his mind as he turned to face his enemy. He had no chance against 6 men with nothing but a hatchet and no training. He threw the weapon aside into a bush and dropped to his knees, his hands in the air. The men surrounded him. Peter closed his eyes and prepared for the death blow.
Ugh, Tina. This is a story we've been following. Like, you've been kind of writing in this world a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So good. Yeah. I gotta have a second to process that. That was so good.
I kind of wanted him to jump into the water so that I would not be sure if he died or not, but I'm still not sure if he died or not, because it's possible that evil Mr. So-and-so is with this posse of however many people. Like, do you have it in your mind that he did die?
No.
Interesting.
And see, the romantic in me is mad. Like, couldn't they both have got across the bridge in time, and then he could have like cut the bridge from that side? Like, come on.
But like I said, I was inspired by that verse.
Yes. No. Yeah. Well done.
Yeah.
Please don't take that as a criticism.
I'm not. No,
I got emotional enough that I was like, wait a minute.
Well, that's the point of writing, right? To get you all upset. And
yeah. Any kind of art should elicit some sort of emotion, right? So yeah. Gigi says, Tina, a suspense. I loved that. Yeah, thanks. I loved it too. Well done.
Thank you.
So is this going to be your next project then, once you finish this book that you're writing right now?
Yeah, I was like considering, I have like ideas for 2 more books in the series that I'm writing. But I also don't know if I have the excitement to keep it, like to keep the momentum going.
Yeah.
So I'm putting those ideas aside and I'm going to do this other idea. And I can always go back to it later.
I have more ideas for the series that I am quote unquote wrapping up with this 4th book, but same thing is that I'm going to move on to something else, and I think I'm going to come back to this series later. I think we'll see.
Right. Like, I'm not selling a super huge amount right now, even though I'm in such a small niche. Like, I keep hitting number 1 in my category. I make like $15 when that happens. It's just like, but if something were to happen and it was just like take off, then I might consider continuing it.
Yeah, I mean, that used to be what happened, is people wrote a sequel because the first one was selling like hotcakes, right? So
yeah.
Now we write sequels so we can get the first one to sell like hotcakes.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Jen, what did you do for
us
today?
We're back in the Widows of the West world. So love is patient. Colleen sloshed the soapy rag across the dish, trying in vain to keep the still small voice from invading her thoughts further, but the attempt was futile. With each swish of the rag, the scripture she had memorized as a child continued to repeat through her subconscious. Love is patient. He'd said he would wait, however long that took, which seemed like a fool's task, seeing as how she had no intention of ever falling in love, since love was nothing more than a fairy tale, as far as she had seen. Love is kind. Well, there was no denying the man was kind. She'd shown him unkindness on many occasions, and he'd had every opportunity to respond and like, but he hadn't. He'd gotten upset, even angry at times, but unkind? Colleen couldn't say she'd ever seen that in him. It does not envy, it does not boast. Well, she wasn't sure about the envying part, but if any man had a reason to boast, it was Cade McNeil. Yet she'd never witnessed that from the man either. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. Colleen knew that it was what it was like to be dishonored, but from Cade, no. Hadn't he left his own ranch, his own interests, to come help her save her own ranch? Why? Love. Colleen dried the last dish and shook her head. No, she argued with a voice. Love is a fairy tale. Love is patient and kind. And she interrupted the voice. Cade. Cade was all things love, and he was offering it to her. 3, 2, 1.
How could you leave it there?
There's so much because I just don't have time.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, no wonder you're excited to get into this.
But the funny thing is I can't use this.
Why?
Because this is the new international version, which did not exist when this story should happen. And if you read the King James version, which did exist, it doesn't say love, it says charity.
Yeah.
So I might have
well,
to
you might be able to be like, she didn't understand that it meant love. Like maybe there's some, she learned that word meant love. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, maybe. But at least it was a nice little exercise to get back into writing and to see these characters again and see a little bit more. Yeah. I mean, it was a fast 15-minute sprint, but there's a lot that could be unpacked here and make it a really good chapter of her struggling with this scripture and looking back on everything that like has happened. It could be happen later, like in the story. However, I would have to figure out how to do that since that's not what the scripture says if you read the King James version. So, yeah.
Very good. I really, really like that.
Thank you. You're muted, Tina. I was wondering why you're being so quiet.
I was wondering why everyone was ignoring me. I really love the little interjections of her washing the dishes because that rang so true to me. Because like if I'm washing dishes, my mind is going. Like my mind is just chattering away inside my head at me. And so it just felt so genuine.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Gigi says, Jen, a cliffhanger. Colleen is in love with Cade. Yeah. I mean, I hope at this point, right? So Teresa says, so good, Jen. She said, the very fact the fact about the NIV is why you're a historical writer and I am not. LOL. Right. Agreed. And there could be a lot of people that would read it and just love it and not know. But then there's a lot of historical writers that'd be like, excuse me, this is not accurate. And that's the kind of reader I am too. So I got to make sure that I write for them as well.
Right.
So, but I could just take this scene and put it in a different book. It could be in a different, with different characters. I could change these things and I could make Marnie. It really could be a scene for Marnie because I mean, Mr. Boss is, he can be obnoxious and he would be these things, but just in not a way that she would have expected him, so anywho, it could be used. But.
And, I used to give that advice to my daughter. Like, is this guy that you're interested in, does he like, not just like the love verses, but like the fruits of the spirit and like, can you put his name in there? And that's a good way to decide on, does this guy have the character that I want to date him?
It's a really good point. Good advice.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the what's next section of our podcast. And that's where we're the opposite of the what's up, where we say what's next. So Jen, what's next with you?
Oh, I'm still slowly making it through the edits. I might try this week to sit down and work on a book cover design. That might also help me too. If I can have that off my plate, because normally I love that part. That part I enjoy. So maybe if I could just like focus on something more fun, it might be what I need to get like back into it. So continuing editing and play around with, because my laptop was not working. The laptop that has a software on it, and now it's working again. Like it was a God thing. Apparently God didn't want me working on it over Christmas. And so here I am. So that's my plan. That's my what's
And plus,
next.
if you get that done, your mountain won't feel so big.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Tina? What's next for you?
Next week, I have a mammogram appointment.
Oh, fun.
I have a coaching call with Becca Stein, which
Oh,
I'm
that
really
is fun.
excited about on Monday. I have an interview with a podcast on Thursday.
Ooh.
I've got a girls' night out with my Bible girlfriend. I call them my Bible girlfriends because we don't do small talk.
Mm-hmm.
Like we get together and it's all deep, like spiritual discussions. That we do that for fun. Like it's not boring. And I have an opportunity to possibly go to Wilmore, Kentucky.
Oh, to Asbury.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah. I don't know. I don't
So
know.
you don't. So that's your what's next. Like
and my granddaughter is spending the weekend too. So, yeah.
You're kind of busy.
Yeah. We'll see. It's in God's hands.
Yep.
What about you, Jamie? What's next for you?
Well, I'm making my way through my edits, and it's interesting, Jen, because just as you were talking about doing your cover, and maybe I shouldn't spring this on you while we're on air, but I wonder because I think that a little bit of my personal, I'm happy with the progress I'm making. Don't get me wrong, but anytime I think about marketing this book, it takes the wind clear out of my sails and makes me like, I don't wanna. And I kind of like wonder how much that pulls me away. I don't think we talk too much about the fear of success or failure when it comes to writing or completing a project. And I mean, maybe even off camera, you and I could talk about this because it's kind of like, I gotta not think about that stuff because whenever I get over there, okay, it's done. And now what am I gonna do? Because even the process of launching a standalone novel, there's a million different ways and a million different people to tell you what you're supposed to do with it. And that I think could possibly be crippling or hindering for people, possibly me. I don't know. But this week I was straight up not able to work.
Right. You were sick.
Yeah. But I also, want to be mindful of that, the way that makes me feel, because I do have people in my life who are not my writer friends who ask me about my book. And I just feel myself inside going, thinking about how am I going to market this thing? And I just don't want to. But then at the same time, I'm going to want people to read it. And it's like thinking about that I'm going to have to do that is like, do I even really want to finish this book? I mean, really not, but you know what I'm saying? Because the what's next of being done is like not something that fills me with joy.
Right.
So that's where I'm at.
I hear you, sister, and we can talk about it.
And
it could be just like with the writing, like you said, you can decide I'm walking away. I'm not going to be a writer anymore. And that might motivate you to do it. You could do the same thing. You can just say, I'm putting the book out, but I'm not going to want anyone to read it. And you could just leave it at that and then see if you change your mind or if that motivates you,
Yeah.
Again,
it's this idea that you have this magical, mythical window of when it's first published that you have to get all of this kind of success, right? Like you can't just put a book out there without some kind of a marketing plan and expect to have like a bajillion kind of readers coming out of the woodwork. It's all of those beliefs that are on me. And I just like,
Did you guys hear about this old man who wrote a serial killer, like spy thriller 15 years ago? And he put it up, published it, but he never marketed it and it didn't sell. And the other
How many
day,
years ago?
I think it was 15 years ago.
Okay.
I think. But it was like a lot of years. It was like 12 or 14 or 15 or something like that. Last week, his granddaughter did one video on TikTok of him typing and said, my grandpa wrote this book, but however many years ago. And it went viral and had over 1 million views. And his book went to #1.
Wow.
Yeah.
Category.
And that's where it comes down to just being providence, you know.
A lot of it is that. Agreed. Absolutely. And also too, like there is some things that I would even to this day say you should do this before launching your book. This is like the bare minimum. But honestly, like a successful career is the long haul. Like you want to sell some of your books, you want people to read them, but it's the long haul. It's doing these things that we're talking about. It's like, getting your butt in the chair. It's taking breaks when you need to take breaks. It's being consistent and putting out books and enjoying what you're doing so that you enjoy this and it doesn't become a drudgery, right? And showing up every day for yourself, right? That's what's going to long term make a career, not like one in general. You hear all the stories about like the one book that's out and it becomes a major hit, but that's not the norm, right? So
it's not.
The norm is what you make it, is what I'm
and
trying
a lot
to say.
of the experts will tell you not to bother marketing your first book. Wait until you have 3 or 4.
Right. And that's why this is a whole nother discussion. This is what I was going to agree with that. But there are certain things that I would do, like as far as the emails put out and just the way, but it's a very light marketing kind of a thing, in my opinion. But yeah.
And Gigi says, Jamie, we're here to support. Your book is going to be so good.
Oh, I appreciate that. And Catherine seems to be echoing what Jen said. Give yourself permission to write the book and not market it.
Yes. Agreed.
I agree. Yeah. Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, this concludes this episode of the Christianity Writers Podcast. So until next week, may your pen be prolific, your deadlines be met, and may all of your words honor Christ.
Bye.
Bye.